a gospel tune beneath the weight of a blood red moon. Just as sleeps in southern dust, but bones remember what lies can't hurt.
Welcome to Make It Make Sense, Alabama. If it affects people's rights, safety, or the ability for them to advocate for themselves in Alabama, we believe that it deserves an explanation. And that's exactly what our podcast is here to do. I'm Whitney Scapecchi. I'm here today with my partner, Neeli Faulkner. We're focused on accountability, justice, and vivid understanding across the state. Each episode breaks down complex issues in plain language using public record, personal interviews, and verified information.
Whitney and I have been looking closely at Alabama Department of Human Resources for months, specifically their child welfare system. And what started out as a few families reaching out to us has grown into something much bigger. And the concerns we're hearing are not just about where children are placed, but they include questions about inconsistent standards, lack of communication, barriers to due process, and how difficult it can be for relatives to step in once a case moves towards termination or adoption. And today, our guest is Beth Robley. For privacy and safety reasons, we are not naming the children involved. But Beth says she spent more than 3 years trying to obtain custody of 2 siblings in her family. She believes what happened in her case mirrors some of the same patterns Whitney and I have been examining across the state. Beth alleges that DHR repeatedly declined to place one of the siblings with biological family, despite her efforts to seek custody and even relocate to be closer. She claims the child's biological mother was allowed to choose a non-relative placement with an individual who had a prior federal drug trafficking conviction, and that this same person was later fast-tracked for foster licensure and ultimately adoption. She further alleges that documented safety concerns were overlooked, that drug testing standards were applied inconsistently, that home study findings were inaccurate, and that her attempts to intervene in court were blocked. She also claims procedural barriers limited meaningful participation by other relatives, including the child's father and grandmother. Parental rights were ultimately terminated, the adoption was finalized, and Beth's efforts to intervene were denied or rejected. She currently has an appeal pending, and today she's sharing her account of how that process unfolded. So this is a very heavy episode full of a lot of information, but Beth, I'm so glad that you reached out to us, because when we first read your email, I thought, okay, number one, she's organized. Her information is very easy to read. And Beth even provided us a timeline of events to see how it all unfolded, has kept a massive amount of documentation during this process.
Yeah.
And this is a perfect example of everything that Whitney and I have been talking about. Beth, I don't know if you've watched a couple of our other episodes, but we have had 2 other parents across the state that have spoken out that had kind of similar stories. Everybody's story is one in their own, but they were very similar. So thank you.
We're seeing a pattern. Yeah.
Yes,
So
that's what I'm getting at. We're seeing a pattern, and we're getting more and more parents and relatives and guardians speaking out. And this is just a perfect opportunity. So thank you for doing that. So
Thank you for having me.
Yes, yes. What we'll do is start at the very beginning. Our listeners, if you've never tuned in, you understand that Whitney and I have been looking into claims that our child welfare system is broken. It really needs an overhaul. It truly, truly needs oversight. And the problems that parents are experiencing are not being heard, and they don't know where to turn. And so we've got that background. Let's start at the beginning of your story. Kind of set the scene for us. Tell us, what does your life look like at the beginning of this? Or, are you working? Do you have children of your own? What do your relationships look like? Just kind of set the scene for us, for anybody listening.
So I'm married. I have an incredible son, 28 years old, lives in Georgia. When all of this originated, that's where I was living. I was living in a small town called Perry, Georgia, about 3 hours from the county that I live in now. March 2022, our family was notified that 2 of my nieces were being removed from the home of their parents. They were half sisters. They shared the same father. I reached out to Houston County DHR and offered my home as a resource March, April, and May, and was told by the social workers at the time, oh, well, your services are not needed. We've already found placement. And I'm like, okay, but I have safety concerns for the placements that you have these girls in. I know, one child's placed with an estranged wife that she's not seen in 7 years, and the other one is placed in the home of a 3-time convicted drug felon. Well, we don't need your help. We've got this. So in May of 2022, my mother was dying. I brought my mom from Georgia to Alabama to see those girls, and the 2 homes that they were in, both of those women said, hey, I'm filing for custody of this one, and I'm filing for custody of that one. That was on a Friday. We got back home. I turned around Monday morning, drove 3 hours back down here. Houston County at that time wouldn't even talk to me anymore. Because the oldest child was in Geneva County, I assumed that's where I was supposed to go. So I went to Geneva County, walked in, told them who I was, offered my home as a resource for both the girls. They informed me that they could not speak to me without the father, and that I needed to go get the father. I left, went to a little town called Opp, Alabama. I think it's Coffee County or something like that, like an hour drive. I drove all the way there to get him. While I was gone, they called the mother that had my oldest niece and said, you need to bring her to us immediately. Now, mind you, she'd already been there. They called the
foster? I'm so sorry. They called the foster. No, the mother.
This is just the legal wife of the dad who had the oldest.
Gotcha.
And said, you need to bring her to us immediately. Now, at this point, they had been with these women for about 2 months. So I drove to Opp, got my nephew, came back with my nephew. They looked at the mother, the woman who had my oldest niece, and said, you can leave. She's not going back with you. You failed her drug screen 2 months ago. Yeah, 2 months. She'd been living in this woman's house with a failed drug screen, and they knew it. So she went in the parking lot, bawling her eyes out, crying, don't know what happened or how it's gone down like this. And they printed out a parental delegation form, made my nephew sign it, and said, she's going with your aunt, which he was fine with. He wanted her to come to me in the first place. In Houston County, said no because I lived in a different state. But Geneva put her in my car with a backpack and a toothbrush and said, go back to Georgia with her. But her sister, they would not let me have. Houston County had her on a safety plan with the drug dealer. This drug dealer was the bio mom and dad's. She was their drug dealer. She was who supplied their drugs to them. The bio mom of my youngest niece has an extensive and sad history with DHRs. She's got 6 or 7 kids. The state has taken every one of them, and those that they didn't take are deceased. An extensive history. But they let her choose because she was legally married to a man in North Carolina or South Carolina. He was under Alabama law. Because she was legally married, he's considered the biological father.
Gotcha.
Not my nephew, who was on the birth certificate. So they said he didn't have the right to choose where his children were placed because he wasn't considered the legal dad.
Had he done paternity? Just so viewers are...
At that
point, we established paternity? Okay. No.
At that point, no. He was just on the birth certificate.
Okay, but still. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. He was just on the birth certificate. And he left her and moved in with my sister, and the drug dealer, the whole family was on drugs. She was a family friend of all of them, the whole family, except for me. I didn't know her. I lived in Georgia. They were angry because the bio mom was angry because the father went back to my sister. So they called DHR. Hey, they're all on drugs. DHR goes over there, demands that everybody in the house, no court order, nothing. Everybody submits to a drug screen. And when my sister refused, that's when they took the children and put them with the drug dealer and put them with the other woman.
What is interesting is that you're talking about Houston County. For listeners who are unaware, Whitney and I previously interviewed a woman, Toya Garrett, who
Mhm.
is also having issues with DHR in Houston County. Toya appeared at the state board meeting a couple months ago that Whitney and I attended and spoke about her problems, and there were other parents that came to a town hall after the fact that were also from Houston County. I'm pointing this out because these are parents that, like yourself, are willing to speak out. Something's going on in Houston County. We need to
Well,
get this figured out.
and
I mean, it's
what's
not just
interesting
Houston.
too, no, it's not. We are aware of that. But what is interesting about Houston County, when you look at some of these different counties, you kind of see and I'll say it plainly, it appears that there is a pattern of maintaining the children in state custody. In each county, it's like the niche is a little different, right? For Houston County, what's notable is that there are families willing and able to step up and become placements for these children. We saw that in Latoya's case. And it's kind of what we're seeing coming out of Houston, if that makes sense. Very much like
Yeah.
what you were experiencing.
Well, what's crazy is at the time, what I know now, and I didn't know in the beginning, jurisdiction, where a child's lived for, X amount of time prior to the court proceedings and all of this, all of that I did not know. So when I drove down, I just assumed because the oldest child was in Geneva County that that's who I needed to be speaking with. I didn't realize that it was Houston County that had them on a safety plan. But Geneva County immediately, they must have had some kind of jurisdiction, something, because they immediately removed her from that other party's home and gave her to me just like that. I mean, no questions asked.
And again,
Didn't even-
just to clarify, but it was Houston County that placed that child in Geneva County.
Yes.
But Geneva County handed the child over to you when Houston had refused. Okay, you can go ahead.
And again, I don't know if jurisdiction, I don't know how Geneva got jurisdiction to do that. I just know that's the county that I went to because I assumed that's what I had to do.
Yeah.
I left that day with her. We went back to Georgia. I only stayed for a few more weeks, about another month, before I made the decision to pack up my home. My husband is fortunate enough that he can work from anywhere. He travels, so it doesn't matter where we live. And we made the decision to leave our home, my son, all of my family in Georgia, my nieces, who I miss terribly. But I made the decision to come back here to be in this fight so that my niece could be with her biological family and that I could fight for her sister, because the home that her sister was in, again, she was a family drug dealer. I mean, for years, she provided the drugs that broke that family down. And I had expressed multiple times, I am concerned for her safety. I came home. I moved here in July. I filed my first petition in end of July, beginning of August for custody. The guardian ad litem was the guardian ad litem for both girls. Same guardian ad litem for both girls. And she immediately recommended that custody for, can I say baby A? For baby A remain under the safety plan by Houston County, placed with the drug dealer, but did not object to me getting custody of child J, the oldest sibling. Eventually went to court and was awarded temporary custody of the oldest sibling. Later, that just within a couple of months of me filing that petition, within a couple of months, I was awarded temporary custody that I had to share with a non-relative individual. And the judge point blank looked me in my face and said, as far as I'm concerned, this is her grandmother. The woman's not related in any way. She just happens to have that sibling's oldest brother from a different relationship.
No blood relation.
I was forced to share joint custody with this woman, while custody for baby A was denied repeatedly. No, just point blank, no.
What was the reason that they were giving you? Because baby A was already placed elsewhere?
She was under a safety plan with the drug dealer, and they didn't feel a need to change that. The nephew has not been considered the legal father yet, even though he was biologically, and he's on the birth certificate. Because he wasn't considered the legal father, they felt it was best to leave the child with the drug dealer.
Speaking
And
of
I guess I
drugs
should.
and the testing issues, I want to point this out because this is what I found interesting in your timeline. You noted drug testing issues in 2022. You said DHR ordered 10, 12, and 14 panel hair follicle tests for family members. The drug dealer was required to take only a 5-panel test, excluding
Correct.
methamphetamine, which is her documented drug of choice. Was that ever
Correct.
explained to you, or how did you come about that
So
information?
I didn't learn that until the TPR process, which was 2 years later. I got access to all of the TPR records because my nephew's attorney turned all the records over to him. And then I started going through the documentation, the records, the reports. And I'm like, the home study report was falsified. The drug screen did not test for meth when that was clearly her drug of choice. That's what she went to prison for. 10 years in federal prison for drug trafficking. Yeah, she wasn't
Excuse
tested.
my language. Holy shit.
She went to prison for meth and they never tested her for it. Or at least it's not in the documentation that I have. Let me say that.
Well, but
It's
there's
not in the court
documentation
records.
of a drug test. So it's not that there's an absence of a drug test. There's a drug test, but they are not testing this woman who
They
has
did
been to
not.
federal prison for the drug.
Yes. And this
Okay.
is just Geneva
Okay.
County's records that I have. I don't have access to Houston County's records. But yeah, so there's a little bit of a back history. Allegedly, there was a DHR worker in Geneva whose sister, very well-known drug user at the time also, was best friends with the drug dealer. And it was alleged that that social worker pulled strings to get her approved. Now, and I can't prove any of that. That's just
This
what
is alleged. This is the town
Yeah.
T.
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
but still.
Now,
Okay.
she has since left Geneva County and gone to Houston County. Going back to the timeline, that was August that I got denied. In September or November, I have to go back and look at my notes. The drug dealer called us, frantically crying, upset. The child had been sexually assaulted while in the care of the bio mother. They were headed to Birmingham to go to or Montgomery Children's Hospital because the hospital was referring her out. I immediately filed another petition in the courts for emergency custody. And that's when Geneva stepped in. November of 2022, Geneva County stepped in, took over custody of her from Houston County, and awarded Geneva County pendant-like custody of her. And the judge dismissed my petition for custody, saying it was considered a duplicate in that. He also dismissed the drug dealer's petition for custody as well, because she filed for custody, but he dismissed both of our petitions, said they were duplicates and that we could file to be an intervener in this case, which both of us did. I believe she filed on October the 31st. I filed on November the 1st to be an intervener in this case. And hers was approved within days. Mine remained ignored and just completely ignored until December the 14th of 2022, when the judge denied my motion to be an intervener. From November the 1st to November the 8th, somewhere in that time frame, DHR filed a permanency hearing in Geneva County, juvenile court judge, knowing I have a motion to be an intervener on the books to be heard. Filed a
And that
motion.
you have a half sibling. Let's not
Yeah.
forget, you have a half sibling with
And that's the
intercustody.
same
Okay.
judge. The same judge gave me her sister. Same judge gave me her sister. They filed a permanency hearing requesting that the drug dealer be granted permission to adopt.
Jesus Christ.
While I still had a motion to be an intervener in the docket that had not been ruled on. So he knew I was seeking custody of my niece. He knew it. At the hearing where they were granted pendant light, that, hey, we got to find the legal father, blah, blah, blah. I did that. I hired somebody, found this young man, found where he was living in North Carolina or South Carolina, got him served, got him down here. He admitted he was not the father, hadn't been here in years, blah, blah, blah.
And Beth, I would like to ask you, at that point, are you trying to establish paternity of your nephew? Has anyone alluded to you, if you can establish him as the father, we can get this child?
So
I'm trying to.
No. So
okay.
the day that we were in court, I want to say it was in September when we were in court, my attorney at the time and then the attorney for DHR pulled me into the hallway and they said, "Hey, we just want to explain to you what the legal jargon is, legal father versus bio father." I said, I understand, I understand why y'all have taken this stance. I get it. DHR attorney looked me in my face and she said, "If this child turns out not to be your biological niece, are you going to continue to seek custody?" And I was like, no. My thought was, I didn't say it out loud. My thought's like, why would I? I mean, if she's not my biological family, she's got blood family out there somewhere. That's where she deserves to be. So I said, obviously not. If she's not my biological niece, then I'm not going to pursue custody of her. And I think that was the turning point for me. I think that's when they're like, oh, well, we're just not even going to bother with her, because the drug dealer has thrown it in my face a couple of times. You didn't even care enough to fight. You didn't even want her unless you were related to her.
I mean, you have literally moved your entire life to another
I packed
state.
up my whole family.
They
So
grasped
this is
onto
a good time to put this in here, Whitney. I don't know if you've seen this in the timeline I uploaded, but in January of 2023, the presumed legal father appeared in court with a sworn affidavit denying paternity. The affidavit was scanned into the court record in February, so about a month later. And then by May, DNA testing confirmed Beth's nephew as baby A's biological father. So whether or not, it ultimately ended up that, yes, this is a child that is biologically related, and we're continuously ignoring this. And here's the reason that this conversation is important, because when we speak to people and when we spoke to representatives at the state board meeting of DHR, they're plastering this stuff on the screen about, family placements and, 70 something
the success rate.
that, our rates are really high placing them with families. But you are not the only person that we've spoken with that says, hey, I'm a family member. I've been fighting to get custody or, at least temporary placement. And it's constantly being denied for just people that are randomly in the system that are willing to take them.
Well, and I'm even willing to say, Neeli, also, too, these children, other than being placed with family, we find out through court records, documentation that exists, that these children are not only not placed with family, they are placed in an environment that most people with half a brain cell would conclude is a far more dangerous placement.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, according to DHR's standards, I mean, that they make exceptions for foster placement in the case of someone convicted of drug manufacturing and trafficking. You can be considered to be a foster parent, but you have to have been out of prison or paroled for minimum 10 years for that exception to take effect. This chick had only been out of prison for a couple of years.
But was still using as far as you knew.
I'm sorry?
I said, but was still using as far as you knew?
Yeah. No, and I think that's why they didn't test, they didn't do the hair follicle for meth, because they knew she would fail. I mean, she might have been able to pass a urine test, but she would not have passed a hair follicle test.
Hair follicle,
she would have failed. Now, it's my understanding that she has gotten clean since all of this, but I mean, they set it up so that she would. And going through the TPR paperwork, there's only 2 drug screens on her. Only one has a chain of custody. The other one's just a piece of paper on a letterhead from Geneva County saying pass drug screen. No.
Well, listen, even if she, passed the drug screen with flying colors, it still goes back to the fact of why are we not placing children with biological family members?
Well,
especially that are fighting to get custody of them while, everything is worked out. This is a unique situation here. I mean, I'm just talking out loud here. This is a rhetorical question, really, but why on earth would DHR not place her with you once DNA testing was confirmed? There's no question about it.
And they wouldn't, going back to the timeline, when DNA confirmed that he was the nephew, that was like, I think the DNA came back on May 25th. I started emailing on May 27th. Guys, DNA's back. She's my niece. What do we need to do to get her out of foster care? Again, I am offering my home as a resource for my niece. And I just was literally ignored. I not even
And you're
responded
begging.
to. Just,
You are begging
oh my
for
God.
this child. And
Yeah.
this is disgusting.
I took them offline because one of the guardian items in another case threatened to have me put a gag order on me because I uploaded the emails.
You
I
went public.
redacted the
public,
emails. Yeah. I took out the children's names. I redacted the emails. I even took out the DHR's email address so they wouldn't have that. And she threatened to put a gag order on me. So I ended up taking the redacted emails down. But I have a pile of emails, hundreds of emails that I have sent begging. At first, I'm begging to get her out of foster care. Then I'm just begging for visitation. Can we just see her? I have her sister. She wants to see her sister. Nothing. There was a court order when I got custody of the oldest one that permitted visitation between the two girls. But the drug dealer would not agree to it if she came to my house. So DHR wouldn't let her come to my house. They agreed to let her sister see her while she was in the care of this non-relative person, which ended up being revoked because of lack of proper supervision. The woman's almost 90 years old. She has no business caring for children, let alone, a toddler at the time. And
oh my God.
So
I told you this was a doozy case.
Well, Beth, I went into this pretty blind. I read your initial email. Neeli has spearheaded gathering all of this. And so this is genuine reaction because I am digesting this all for the first time and I'm sick.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Please continue.
No, that's all right. So visitation ended up being revoked in April of 2023 because of lack of supervision at this other party's house. Now, mind you, there was a court order that said these girls could see one another. GAL didn't make any other arrangements for a different visitation plan to maintain that family bond, to maintain that family connection. The GAL didn't do anything. DHR didn't do anything. It took me 6 months to learn why visitation was denied because they would not talk to me. You're not a party to this. You can't be a part of this. I'm like, guys, how am I not a party? I'm literally fighting for custody of her. How am I not a party to
this child? Screw you.
Yes.
I mean,
it took me 6 months to learn the truth. And it,
oh my God.
I mean, at this point, we're 2 years into this and they won't let me see her. They won't let me have any contact with her. They quit letting her sister have any contact with her. They tried to play nice with me and invite me to an ISP meeting.
Course.
Where they had said, hey, we're going to get reunification efforts back and let her see her sister. But at this point, she hadn't seen her sister in almost a year, had no contact with her. And the family bond was just ripped apart.
Without disclosing age, because something that you said with lack of supervision, the foster parent or placement at that point is literally roughly 90 years old.
No, no. So the oldest sibling was placed. I had to share custody with a woman who's almost 90 years old. And gotcha. I had to give her every other weekend to this woman. And then the drug dealer who has baby A would allow visitation while she was at the drug dealer's house. I mean, while she was at the non-relative's house.
Okay. So you as a family member could not have supervised visitation, but we've got, alleged drug abuser, past, present, we're not sure. She is allowing visitation with this other foster parent. Okay. All right. Because that makes sense. It doesn't, but okay. Thank you.
Well, the other one's not even a foster parent. She's just a lady. She's not foster, not related. She's just who the judge made me share custody with.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Go ahead.
Fast forward.
What happened from there? Where is everything now? What has happened do you still have custody of one of the children?
I'm just going to back up just a little bit. In December, when we found out that the judge denied my motion to intervene, he said, and his reason was, I'm already known to DHR, so I need to make myself available to them. And we tried from December of that year to May of the following year. And DHR just would not respond to my attorney, would not talk to any of us. I tried reaching out directly to the social worker over that case, and she very rudely, very hostile, said, we will never consider you for placement unless the judge makes us, and don't ever contact us again. I mean, just nasty. Turns out that DHR worker, her sister was her supervisor. Her immediate supervisor in Department of Human Resources was her sister, which is
Oh my
a
gosh.
clear violation of the nepotism law for the state of Alabama. All my
Jesus.
complaints that I kept filing over and over and over about how this case is being handled and the way the social worker was addressing issues
Was
and not
going to
following
her
policies
sister.
was going to her sister. Yes. Who, to my understanding now, has become the director of that county. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's what I was told. So we get to what we're now in 2024. They have denied visitation. They didn't follow. They changed the ISP to say we could have visitation, therapeutic visits, but then they didn't adhere to the ISP plan. They didn't follow it. Ended up terminating the father's rights. And
Do you mean the father's rights is in your nephew or the presumed legal father?
no, my nephew, because they established him as the biological and legal father.
So what was their basis for terminating his rights?
He didn't follow treatment plan or something. Then they give you all this list of stuff to do, and he didn't do it.
Okay. And
honestly, nobody thought. I mean, nobody. I filed a motion. When I filed my motion to intervene and he denied it, my attorney ended up quitting. So I ended up having to represent myself. So I filed a motion to reconsider. And this was the year that they were trying to do the TPR. I filed a second motion to reconsider and open the case again to be heard as an intervener. Now, the motions, let me mention this, both the motions to intervene that were filed in 2022 were never heard before the judge. There was no testimony given, nothing. He just ruled on them without ever hearing from either one of us. Granted her immediately, denied me months later. So when I filed the second motion to intervene, I ended up being granted a hearing for that. Now, mind you, all these other stuff, you're not a party. You're not a party. We can't share this information. We can't tell you. We can't give you. You're not a party. But I filed the motion to intervene, and DHR said, Your Honor, we're fine with her. With her motion, we'll go ahead and let's run the court, push the court date up, so that because TPR is scheduled for this, and we need to dot our I's and cross our T's, essentially. So I get on the stand for that hearing, and it's the same. My sister had also filed a petition for grandparents' rights, which they ultimately denied her, said that she didn't have she refused the drug screen 2 years ago. And B, they said that she didn't have a bond with the child. At that point, 2 years, we've been denied access, no contact, not even allowed to see her, call her, talk to her, nothing.
so,
said,
of
well,
course, you can't have a bond if you
yeah.
were being intentionally kept away from the child. Okay.
Exactly.
Oh, my God.
Judge denied her motion, said that he didn't see a significant, she had no bond with the child, so he denied her motion. I get on the stand. I'm sworn in. GAL immediately says, Your Honor, I object to these proceedings. She had a chance, 6 months ago. She could have filed an appeal. And the judge, you know what? I've already ruled on this. Ms. McCormick, get off the stand and leave the courtroom. Never allowed to give testimony based on the new evidence where we tried to do what he advised us to do through DHR. Wouldn't let me introduce evidence that the DHR attorney was ignoring us and not responding. Nothing. I was just told, get off the stand and leave the courtroom. So he denied my motion to be an intervener again, and then moved forward with the TPR hearing. And that's why DHR allowed that intervener motion, because
You could
they were
never
dotting their
come
I's and
back.
crossing their T's. Yeah,
They
they had
literally-
to be able to say they exhausted every effort for family reunification, and it failed. Now, we're 2 years into this, right? Never once have they come to my house to do a home study for this child, for baby A. Geneva County came to my home in 2022 and did a home study for the oldest sibling that they granted me custody of. So they already had one home study on me for one child. I was fit and capable and able to, for that child, I didn't lack any protective tendencies or anything like that. I was okay for her for that home study. But in 2024, when they were terminating the parents' rights, they came to my house in August of 2024 to do a home study and consider me for placement. 2024, they came back and said, no, she's unfit. She lacks protective tendencies. And we deem her too unfit to care for baby A.
And this is around the time that they're crossing their T's and dotting their I's.
Yes.
Okay, so we're
Yes.
checking boxes, just
Yes.
obviously. My other question is, you said that day in court, when you were called to testify, the guardian ad litem stood up. And again, just for viewers, let's backtrack. This is, again, the same guardian ad litem that allowed
For the
the
oldest
first
child.
child.
Yes.
Okay, just want that on the record. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. So when DHR made their recommendation that I'm unfit and that the child should not come to me, they proceeded with the TPR, and based off of, and I wasn't, the court-appointed attorney for my nephew never once called me to the stand to testify during the TPR. Not one time. So the evidence that got sent over on the appeal process was literally one-sided. It was only DHR's evidence. That's what got submitted for the appeal process on the TPR. And because there was no other testimony or evidence entered into court record that would have refuted the allegations that DHR was making, it didn't get issued. It didn't get on the court of record, so it didn't go to the court of appeal. So the appeal denied the TPR, and we lost. And then within weeks, they've moved forward with this adoption. So once the TPR took place and I obtained records of the TPR hearing and all the documentation from DHR, that's when light bulbs started going off for me, and I started to see the falsified home study. In the home study report that DHR submitted, they said that this girl didn't have a background. How can she not have a background when she spent 12 years in federal prison for drug trafficking? But they put she had no background, no criminal history.
Well, and again, I wanted to say it earlier, just putting this out there, if people miss it, you've got different parties being subjected to drug testing. You
Mhm.
have a woman who has spent 10 to 12 years in prison for a drug charge, yet the drug screening that was required from her is not marked, or, is not going to flag as many drugs in her system as being
Correct.
required to the parents. I mean, or whoever the other family members were. I mean, when we look at that, just to help people understand, to your knowledge, any of the family members that were being drug tested at that time, do any of them have documented charges of drug abuse, selling, anything?
So the mother has a long history.
Okay.
The father,
and she was subject to drug screening. Okay.
yeah, and the father, he admitted to drug use, but he also, in May of 2023, says he quit. Now, here's something we had long suspected: the contractor that they were using for their drug screens was falsifying drug screens. We had long suspected that.
For the record here, we have not brought this to light, but I think this is a good time to throw this in, Whitney. We have had several other parents that have come to us that are fighting for custody of their children after an initial failed drug screen. At least two of them that I can confirm that I've actually seen the documentation where they go to do a DHR drug screen, they fail, they immediately go to a separate clinic where they
Yes.
pay out of pocket to have a drug screen. They have a separate drug screen that is not sanctioned by DHR, I guess you would say, and it passes with flying colors.
And,
This is an
and the
issue.
evidence is so overwhelming. I'm saying it on the record now, and Neeli, don't edit it out. I would challenge the Department of Human Resources to challenge me on this. Their hands are guilty of allowing falsification or, changing the perception of what is actually a positive drug test. Like I am accusing DHR of this. And
Well, I mean, we've
I've
got
seen
Well,
the
I
evidence.
can tell you-
records of it. Yeah.
I can tell you from my drug testing. So I have ADHD and I take medication for ADHD. So when they came out, they told me in the courtroom before they would allow me to go to that ISP meeting that I had to submit to drug testing. I said, that's fine, but I will refuse to be drug tested by your person. And the social worker got pretty belligerent with me in the courtroom. And I said, ma'am, I'm not saying I won't do it, but I'm telling you that I believe your contractor is falsifying drug screens to benefit you, to give the narrative that you want it to say. I will have a drug screen, but I will go pay for it out of pocket and have it done, which is what I did. I went that day and had it done. 2 days later, somebody other than the person, the contractor that I believe in my whole heart was falsifying drug screens, somebody other than him showed up at my house. And those people come over, they're doing a drug screen. They document that I have ADHD medicine. I had a legal prescription for it, blah, blah, blah. So they don't send their drug screens out to an MRO officer to review. Now, I've done drug testing in the past. If anybody has something to hit on their drug test, you have a right to have it reviewed by a medical review officer to test the
validity
test
of
to
the
see what the
test?
limits. Yeah.
It's the isolate, right? Like you can
Yes.
isolate it down to what that might be coming from that's triggering it.
Yeah, whether it's exposure, whether it's, that kind of thing. So they don't do that. They don't send it out for a medical review officer. So when they submitted the results for my drug test, they put that I was positive for amphetamines. Positive.
And again, from what I know, because of other parents I've talked to, it's not even like what they were saying in that instance for viewers watching is you test positive for amphetamines, right? But what they should be doing is their due diligence to break it down further and isolate that I'm not going to say exactly right, but isolate where that's coming from. So on paper, what they would have done to Beth, because I've seen this done to families 100 times over, you have a prescription for amphetamines, you fail it, they don't go any further. They will go to court and they will say, well, Miss Beth McCormick tested positive for methamphetamine. That is how they will frame it. It's a totally different drug, but that's how they frame it. Yeah.
Yes. Well, the chain of custody that got submitted did show that I had a legal prescription for it. Now, my drug test that I went and had done that day came back negative. Literally, it said negative, where theirs says positive. And it's because they sent it to an MRO to review along with a copy of my prescription to verify that I am, this is a legal prescription, a legal drug, that she's taken her blood, her levels for that drug are within range. It's not an abusive amount or anything like that. So that was interesting to me, that they manipulated the perception of that.
Well, and again, to see how widespread this is, I'm thinking just off the top of my head, I'd have to go back and verify my notes. I could give someone willing to investigate this evidence from 5 different counties where they are falsifying these drug screenings.
Absolutely.
DHR, I dare you to challenge me on it.
Yeah, I'm very confident about this from seeing the documentation that we have and cases that we're following. There is an issue here with drug testing and the possibility of falsifying drug tests. And
I'm
involved. The broader
involved.
question is, why are we doing this?
Why are we so hell-bent on keeping these children away from their family members, away from loving homes? Why do you need these children so bad?
Well,
because it fills a vacancy.
I think
y'all were at that board meeting. Were you at the board meeting in Montgomery?
Beth, I can answer the question. I'm just not ready to go there yet, but I am ready to go there to go ahead and accuse DHR of falsifying drug screenings. I'm not saying every single person. I'm saying, there are some families out there, some parents that are still using drugs. And I wish that we had a Department of Human Resources that would protect those children in vulnerable situations, but we don't. It is a free-for-all. And I'm going to stop there because I'm getting heated, but
I know for a fact, I know it for a fact that they're falsifying drug screens. And I can say this because there's another case that I'm involved in where the young man got a public intoxication charge and he had to be put on a court referral program. So he has, in Houston County, okay, this is in Houston County. So he has, when I say hundreds of drug screens from Houston County, all clean, every single one of them. But in his custody case in Geneva County, when they test him, they fail him every single time. And they don't even fail him for his drug of choice. They fail him for something he's never done before.
I'm not going to disclose, just to add to your point, if viewers are engaged right now and listening, so I'm not going to identify the parent, but we have interviewed someone and have knowledge of a person who it's the same thing. She, by her probation officer, has been court ordered to do drug screenings. She passes with flying colors every single time. Now, her drug screens that she's required to take by DHR, put them next to each other. She fails. She fails with DHR. She passes. This is in the same damn county.
And I honestly believe it's because I think y'all were there. Y'all were at the board meeting in Montgomery, weren't you? And they talked about their vacancies and what can we do to fill these vacancies. And I'm like, this is a business for you. These are our lives. These are our children. This is my family legacy that you have ripped apart and you have given it to this drug dealer. I mean, and if she's sober, I'm so happy for her. I want this young lady to be healthy and happy. I want her to have a good life because she's caring for my niece right now. And if she's healthy, then maybe she can give a good home to my niece. However, she never should have been placed with her in the first place. Never should she have gone to her in the first place.
Well, and Beth, we're not ready to go there yet and, expose the deeper inner workings of DHR. But I do think that part of it is one could reasonably assume that there are vacancies, right? And vacancies, though, that equates to less funding, right? If you don't have heads in a bed, you're not getting the check.
That's right.
I'm not accusing. I'm just stating how federal funding works.
I will say from the context of that meeting, because I was in it for when they were talked about the number of vacancies that we had across the state and what can we do to fill these vacancies? How can we? I'm like, it became apparent to me. I mean, y'all may not can say anything, but it was in my perception. This is about filling beds for them. This is about filling numbers. This is because you're right. The more demand you have, the more federal funding you're going to get. And the only way you get demand is to take kids away from their families. Now, there is a time and a place for DHR. I believe that.
Yeah.
Did these children need to be removed from their mother and father to begin with? Yes, they did. I will say that. Okay. But when a parent does what they're supposed to do to get them back, or a family member steps up and says, hey, keep my family together. I'm here. I want to help. I should have been given priority over any and everybody.
The golden ticket. You should have been given the golden ticket. It shouldn't have ever been a question. And so the people of Alabama need to ask themselves why. Beth, I haven't done a background check on you. Maybe you used to sell crack 15 years ago. I don't know that. But just from what I know with the way that you have organized your information, the way that you have fought for this child, the way that you present yourself, how on God's green earth could a caseworker sit down and say, you know what, this woman who went to prison for meth about 10 years ago, not even, I'm going to put this child with her. She has no blood relation to the child. Beth, you look like a wonderful upstanding citizen, but just we're not going to place this relative with you. We're going to give her to the drug dealer. Someone answer that for me.
Cracked out teeth. I mean, you could tell she had been a drug user her whole life. She had to go get veneers to hide the fact that her teeth were rotted out from all the meth use. And look, she'd only been out of prison for about 2 years when DHR placed her in this woman's care. She hadn't been out. She wasn't reformed. She was still selling drugs. She was still selling drugs to the family. She might be reformed now because there's been so much pressure on her, and I refuse to give up this fight. Neeli,
This is unreal. God.
You asked me where we are now. Because I've been blocked from the court proceedings, I'm not a party. I couldn't know anything. Court order, fun fact here, court order for visitation between the two siblings would have automatically said that when the adoption was filed, that the family that was being allowed visitation should have been notified. We were never notified of the adoption, when it was going to take place, nothing. I had to find out by hearsay. And when I found out when the adoption was, and at this point, I now have all the documentation from DHR, I filed a motion in juvenile court on September 25th. I filed a motion in juvenile court to stay the adoption, a motion to reopen, the motion to intervene. Same day, I filed it in probate court to stay the adoption because there was, and I cited Rule 60B, pursuant to due process and civil rights violation. So I have it, and I still have an open motion in this court. I guess after now, it's considered closed because he never ruled on it. That was on September 20th.
And Beth, just so people understand, what is stay the adoption? Is it like just explain.
To stop the adoption, to freeze it where it's at so the adoption cannot take place, pending the outcome in juvenile court and my motion to reopen the case.
And you have to file that in Houston County. Is that correct?
No, that's in Geneva County, because when the alleged sexual assault took place, Geneva County took over custody of the child from Houston County. So that was in November of 2023. Fun fact, there was a letter in July of 2023 that DHR has in that record where she was deemed suitable for foster care in July of 2023, when Geneva County letter saying she was suitable for foster care placement, that drug dealer. But Geneva County didn't even take over custody of her until months later. I don't know, maybe I'm just being petty.
Well, no, I'm trying to follow here. There's a lot of dates, and this is a fresh case for me, so I'm absorbing this all today. So you're saying that in July of 2023, there's a letter that exists that deems her fit as a foster parent, correct? And for viewers that might be having a hard time following this, like me, what is significant about that? What else happened around that time that you feel shows this one is not a fit parent? What else happened in 2023?
They granted. Nothing else happened.
Yeah. Okay.
I think when in 2022, when they came to me and said, "Are you going to fight for custody if she's not yours?" and I said no, they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, hey, we're just going to put her in foster care and give her to this person over here." So which if it were about money, then why not make me be a foster parent? Why not force me to do that? You know what I'm saying?
Well, what's interesting, Beth, is when you asked me that, because of how I know that this thing works, I almost wonder if you would have said, if she's not my niece, I'll keep fighting. I wonder if they would have went a little bit easier on you.
Honestly, that's what I believe. I believe with everything in my heart and soul that if I'd have said yes, they would have pushed for her to be placed with me and then required me to become a foster parent. Because I wasn't going to take her if she wasn't mine.
Well, and so viewers that don't know, when you start looking at the title funding, right, for DHR, it is important to understand that DHR is able to garner more funding if they place them with a non-familial, non-relative in foster care. Correct me if I'm wrong, but even after adoption, there's a certain sequence of funding that might not even stop. Am I correct in saying that? I might need to look further, but
I don't know. That's a good question.
I have been told this, that even if adoption is finalized, as long as it is outside of a relative, I do believe, I'll stand corrected, that funding does continue after adoption.
Really?
Yes.
Well, we'll need to double check on that. I know that we were provided some information about funding regarding forced adoptions, or what we're considering forced adoptions, and how it was codified in, I believe, 2019.
That sounds right. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not super confident talking about it in depth right now, but I know there were changes that were made to the code. And that is something that we have been looking at, is to kind of compare numbers prior to that codification and now to see, I know that there's been a lot of problems that are occurring over the years. I mean, we had parents at the state board meeting said they had been fighting DHR for 30 years.
Yeah.
That was crazy to me to hear 30 years, and it was multi-generational. But I would be interested to see what the numbers look like prior to that to what they look like now, because I'm just going to put it out there, always follow the money. And
Amen.
there's got to be a reason that, I'm
So when
sorry. I'm not, if I'm a caseworker, first of all, I'm hoping that we're hiring caseworkers because we have people that care about children. But if we're not doing that, what are they being told to make these placements that, obviously don't make sense? What are we fighting so hard for against families? What are we fighting for to do that? What is happening?
What's the incentive? What is the incentive,
right?
Flip the script.
In my
Flip
mind,
the script.
The only incentive can be money.
Yeah. You going back to the timeline, Neeli, when I filed the motions to stay the adoption, juvenile court never addressed them, never looked at them, never touched them. Probate court denied it, said that based on the TPR and the appellate court TPR upholding the TPR, not The probate court didn't base his denial on the open motion for violation of due process and civil rights. He based it off of orders from the previous year. So they denied it. They moved forward with the adoption. The adoption took place. I am now fighting to have the adoption overturned. I have since had to hire an attorney because I don't know how to, I'm not an attorney. I wasn't doing very well on my own.
I was literally about to say that. Are you in law school?
No.
You probably should be.
Me and Chat GPT, that's my law clerk. Yeah. So I had to hire an attorney for this part of the appeal process, but I'm now trying to have the adoption overturned. And we're in the probate court literally just turned over those records like last week. And that I filed back 6 months ago. And they just turned those records over this week.
I know that we talked prior to starting the episode, and I kind of gave you a heads up about a bill that is currently going through the legislature, HB 464. And just for the record, you said you weren't very familiar with it, but I want to bring it up for people that are listening. This is a bill that has been introduced by Representative Kenneth Paschal. And there's a lot of stuff that are good in this bill, but essentially what it does is help to start providing oversight for DHR. So for people that are listening, I would highly encourage them to take a look at this bill. This bill is not currently on the House Judiciary Committee agenda. That's what's trying to happen right now. I mean, so if you feel led to review this bill, we will have it on our website under this episode as part of our resources to view this bill. Reach out to the committee chairman and ask that this bill be placed on the agenda. But the reason I'm talking about HB 464, Beth, is because I am curious, based on what you have been through and what obviously you continue to go through, what is the point in which there's something that needs to be changed? What is the major factor here that needs a complete overhaul? Or is it just the entire system?
I think it's honestly the entire system. I think they've become so complacent in how they do things that they're just numb to the fact that these are people's families that they're ripping apart. There needs to be a stronger accountability for the bad actors when they do something wrong or they don't follow procedure and they don't follow policy. There's got to be some level of accountability. I mean, I could pull up everything from DHR's website, their own policies, their own guidelines, and show you what they have blatantly ignored and not adhered to.
We've experienced that as advocates. Like we've even said to a DHR worker, you realize you're violating this mother's rights right now.
And I've said that.
Whitney literally said
I've said that in my emails. I have said the same thing in my complaints to Nancy Buckner, to Kay Ivey, to all of them. Steve Marshall, not realizing that he was their attorney. I've said that they are in clear violation of Alabama code, their own guidelines they're not adhering to. How is this morally, legally, ethically okay? How do y'all lay your heads down at night? How do you look in the mirror knowing that you've prioritized money and funding over the fundamental rights that children have and parents have? It's astounding to me. I was telling a family member last night, will I ever get my niece back? I am praying every day that she is safe and that God bring her home to us, but at this point, she's been with this woman for 3 years now. She has no idea who I am. I went to a ball game, took her sister to see her at a ball game, and the girl had me arrested. Yeah, said that I was so verbally and physically aggressive that other parents had to step in and subdue me that they thought I was going to kidnap this child. Complete fabrication, complete lie. But that's what she told. She had 2 other parents to back her up, and they falsely had me arrested. I'm now fighting criminal charges for that.
Oh my God.
DHR tried to have me arrested. They went to their district attorney and tried to have me arrested. And their DA said, no, we're not going to arrest her. She's done nothing wrong. She's entitled to her opinion as long as she's telling the truth and she's not slandering anybody. She has a right to speak her mind. That's her First Amendment right. She has the right, freedom of speech. And they
What were they trying to
would
arrest
DA.
you for? What was DHR trying to, can I ask?
I don't know. And it was through somebody confidentially that called me and said, "You're not going to believe what's going on." And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, DHR is trying to have you arrested.
When you talk about First Amendment rights, though, and that the DA would not proceed because of that, to me, because of what I know parents and other family members have went through, it reminds me of Facebook posts, right? Going public, talking to the media.
I did. I put faces with names. I put dates. I put everything. I put the whole timeline. I had the judge's face. I had the guardian ad litem. I had the social workers' faces, the codes that they violated. I had it all up there.
And you're allowed to do that. It's
Yes.
America.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Jesus. And
They-
again, just to say, we are arresting law-abiding citizens who just want their family members home. What are we doing with these children? Why do we need them so desperately? Why does DHR need these children so desperately? Alabama, I mean, of all things, above all else, make it make sense to me, because it doesn't. This is terrifying.
That's a great opportunity to say, coming up soon on an episode of Make It Make Sense. we'll tell you exactly why, because the yours is
We're
not
getting
the only
there.
story.
We're getting close. We're getting close. I'm about to just risk it all very soon, and
I
make
do have to
some.
talk Whitney down from the ledge quite often.
That's why we're a good team. She keeps me.
You know, I've
Yeah.
several platforms that, several groups that I'm in, and I tell everybody, because when I first started going public with my story, I know 30 to 50 people hit me up in my direct messages
Yeah.
wanting me to hear what they're going through. And I've told every single one of them, I said, if you have a story, tell it. They can silence one of us, but they cannot silence all of us. We are stronger together. And you may fear retribution, but what's the worst they can do? They've already taken your kids from you,
That's what, and we get to that point with some families. Like I will fight so hard for someone else's kids, because God forbid, if something ever happened to mine and they were unlawfully removed, I would hope that
Yes.
support
I
would rally
rebuke that,
behind
by the
me.
way.
Yes.
Well, yeah, no, like, y'all leave my damn kids alone, because y'all have no idea. Like, but I'm saying, like, I fight so hard because you see some of these parents. There are parents that lose their kids, because they are using drugs, whatever, but people do turn their lives around.
Yes.
But when you say people flock to you, not everyone's educational, level is the same. Some people, it's like they're sitting in a situation and they know that they feel crazy, right? Like they know that like their kid shouldn't be taken away, but they can't quite articulate it, or maybe they are not good at researching the laws. And so I find sometimes that these families or these parents come to me and they're like, can you just listen to my story?
Yeah.
Because like, it
Yes.
feels like my kids were taken from me and they're being, forcefully kept away from me. Like, am I crazy? And it's like, no, you're
and I
not
said that,
crazy.
Whitney, I said that in several of the complaints that I filed. I'm like, guys, I am a person of limited means. I'm not wealthy. I live check to check like everybody else, but I am a little educated. I can articulate. I can carry myself in a conversation in public and try not to get too emotional. I'm not going to say I don't. So if they're doing this to me, someone who is able to comprehend and understand the severity of what they're doing, how many other thousands of parents and families that don't have the educational or cognitive ability to understand, what are they doing to them, who just don't know to ask questions or what questions to ask, so they just blindly go along because they think that what's happening to them is what's supposed to happen to them. So they don't say,
and I will say too, talking about patterns, and this is facts. These are families I've spoken to. I've even seen very uneducated parents come to me, and I do not mean that, in any mean, crude
Sure.
way, but very uneducated. And I'm talking 5, 6 children all taken away. They just wait for that mother to deliver, and they go in and they take those kids because they can. Now you're a threat, Beth. You are educated. You know how to speak. You know how to research things. And so, yeah, what are they going to do to you? They're going to try and put a gag order on you. They're going to try and put you in jail because you pose a risk to the system. You are not a drug using parent that got your kids taken away, you're a little bit harder to discredit than some of these other parents. People have got to open their eyes to this. Like, we have children, what I firmly believe, being unlawfully taken from families, and not even just unlawfully taken from their parents, but also being unlawfully retained in state custody when families are coming forward. What is going on? We have to save these kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly.
Beth, I'm so sorry for what, I don't know how you haven't gone crazy yet. Like, I hear some of these stories and
No.
like, I think I would have lost my mind by now.
My husband will tell you it's been a struggle. There have been moments in this journey where the stress and the anxiety of all of it has, you know, I've had to get on medicine just to help with the panic attacks, because I'm heartbroken. I'm heartbroken. My mother died not getting to see some of her grandchildren because of the way the system treated us. My heart breaks for my mom. And I promised my mama on her deathbed, Mama, I won't stop fighting. I will exhaust every possible avenue I can of getting our kids, these kids back in our family. And that's my goal. I want those kids to look back one day and see they are loved. They are loved. Their biological family loves them and fought for them. That we didn't give up and we didn't quit. Because that's what the system wants them to think, that we don't care and that we didn't love them.
Well, and I
that's
see
not true.
so often, the system, they wear these parents down. I know of 3 people who have committed suicide in Baldwin County in the last calendar year. And I'm sure there's more, but 3 that couldn't handle it anymore. These are parents that just were fighting for their kids, and they have ended their lives because of what DHR had put them through.
You know what? There will be a day of reckoning. There will be a day of accounting, and they will have to stand before God and atone for what they have done. They may think they're right, but to rip somebody's family apart to the point where somebody takes their life because of the desperation and the ache of not having their children, what does that say about our society? What does that say about the people that are sitting in those seats? Neeli, you asked me what needs to happen. You know, when God places you in a position of public service, that's a calling. That's not a job. And if you can't sit in that seat and serve it as a calling, then you don't deserve to be there. You need to move onward so that God can put somebody else in that place to honor him and be the true advocate for the families that we need him to be.
We need people in there that are actually going to put the needs above the children, above their perverse financial incentives.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying it like
Absolutely.
it is.
Nancy Buckner needs to go. Kay Ivey needs to go. They don't care about our children. They don't care about our families. They need to go. And I pray that they get their hearts right and they have a spiritual awakening before they bust hell wide open. Because that's where they're headed.
Thank you for coming on and telling your story. I know it's heavy. Obviously, Whitney is the empath of the group. But we hear these stories all the time. And Whitney and I are mothers ourselves. I can't imagine what some of these families feel like, and we try to empathize with them. But here, we can only do so much. But here's what we can do is make these stories known. So I hope that we've been able to do that for you today.
Hey,
and
guys,
that
I
we
want to say
continue
thank
to do
you.
that.
Thank you. And I did reach out to news medias. I reached out to.
They won't cover it.
They won't.
They're not going to touch it.
I reached out to local news media here in town, and they just completely ignored me. So thank you for picking up that mantle and being that voice for people who just don't have
They
one.
haven't. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to just kind of put this out there. You talked about people reaching out to you about, telling your story or whatever. My background is not in this. This DHR was not on my radar. That is not
I
my
brought it to
forte.
Neeli. I brought it to Neeli because it's a lot. It's a lot to do.
She brought it to me, and it's not my background. I say this on every pod. I hope people know this. Wrongful convictions are kind of where I'm at. True crime, unsolved cases. But this is something that if you have a heart, I don't know how you can look past it. And, I may not get emotional. I may be able to kind of hold my calm during this stressful situations, where everybody's kind of losing it. But these, what is right, and what is wrong is wrong. What is happening to families in Alabama under our current child welfare system and the policies that are in place is clearly wrong. And we have got to start making light of these cases and seeing that there is something wrong and something
You know,
needs to be done. I don't know
Kenneth
where
Pascal
that.
asked me last week or week before last when I was up there. He's like, what do you think needs to happen? And Neeli, you asked that question as well. So, if you go through the policies and procedures that DHR has already in place, I mean, they're pretty decent. Most of them are. If you would have somebody to enforce them and to hold them accountable when they don't enforce them, I think would be a huge stepping stone.
But that would be just a good foundation,
Yes.
right? If you would just follow the damn rules,
yes,
that would be a great place to start.
Yeah,
but
feel
and
like
then
that's
hold them
minimum.
accountable when they don't. Yeah, that's the minimum job requirement, exactly. But then hold them accountable when they don't.
Yeah.
But there's got to be, there's nobody to hear them. There's nobody to hear their stories. There's nobody to. You can't send a complaint to DHR in Montgomery because they don't care. They don't listen. They ignore it. So
they
who's
send
going
it
to hear?
right back down to the county where you're complaining from.
Yes. So who's going to hear it? Who's going to listen?
And when, again, I keep, I'm beating a dead horse, but when the system is designed this way, you have to ask yourself, for what?
Yeah.
Why
Who
is
benefits the most? Yeah.
It's not the children. That's for damn sure.
And Neely's right. Follow the money and you'll see who's benefiting from it.
It's always that, y'all. All right. Well, Beth, thank you. We've come up on our time limit here, so thank you for coming on. If you
Thank you so much.
an update with your case, we would love to get you back on.
Sure.
And stay informed. And if you know others who want to tell their story, and especially if they have a similar story to you, let us know. Reach out to us. We'll be happy to hop on and do that. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, and have a good day. We'll see you.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you.
Make It Make Sense, Alabama is brought to you by Murder Creek Media. If you've never heard of us and want to check out some of our other projects, including our investigative true crime series, visit murdercreekmedia.com to learn more. Thanks for listening, and we'll see y'all soon.